you look at the history of Silicon Valley, Americans from all over the country, a lot of Americans from the Midwest, they migrated to this place. They had creativity. They loved the craft. They built these incredible companies. I remember even I have a friendship with one of the guys who invented email. The guy who invented Outlook, the first mass commercial email program. And it's just like a young kid sold a company to Microsoft at a young age, worked his way up and built this incredible thing. And this friend describes that the initial culture at the time, it was just people who were passionate about building, passionate about engineering, passionate about technology. And I think what you get as these companies turn into these global companies that then homogenize culturally, and they seek only to operate through the balance sheet by reducing labor costs. You get something that also perverts the initial spirit that drove the technological boom in the first place, and we should be honest about it. The capitalist system it rests on the Anglo-American foundation.
Yes.
And look, I'm half Anglo, I'm half Italian. The Italian side of me is it may be sad about this, maybe resentful about this, maybe feel some inferiority about it. But my mother's side, the Anglo side, is responsible. And I can tell this from all my relatives in Italy. There's not a capitalist or entrepreneurial bone anywhere in their body. God bless them. They can cook, they recite poetry, they're beautiful people. But what we have here is unique. And I think degrading it with just this impulse towards minimizing labor costs, importing cheap labor, exploiting that labor, is also unnecessary. Look at the profit margins of these big tech companies. It's not like they're commodity firms that have to compete on a 1% marginal basis. I think it's so short-sighted, and I think the national interest overrides the particular economic interests of these firms. I'd like to see Trump eliminate H-1B and expand something like the O3 program, the more genius level program.
Right.
And I think the Lomez floor is the right proposal.
So the other thing too, it's not just this. I mean, I agree with all that. Okay, I don't know that we're going to find so much disagreement on this point. But the other thing here, what you're talking about, is this kind of like Anglo culture, these sort of like unspoken norms and sort of intuitions and values and aspirations and how you think about what makes a satisfying and ambitious life. This is what got Vivek in so much trouble back in December when this issue came up. If you remember during the H-1B debate, for anybody who wasn't around or heard that, Vivek Ramaswamy, who otherwise has sort of like spoken, the right kinds of ways about certain topics in this, general domain, made the point on Twitter, the really bad point, I want to say, that there is something wrong with American culture. And that, we're too busy like playing football and watching Saved by the Bell and, aspiring
and celebrating
to
the homecoming queen.
We want to aspire to be Zach Morris. God forbid we want to aspire to be Zach Morris, when instead we need to be practicing for the spelling bee. And like, we need to be going to like math camp when we're like 6 years old. And it's like, no, man, that is not this culture. If you want that, you can go back. You can go find that somewhere else. That is not... By the way, that does not produce more capable human capital. It just doesn't. It teaches you how to like operate within a very constrained sort of bureaucracy. It might teach you some level of like intellectual discipline or something, but it is a completely anathema to the kind of creative, impulsive, risk-taking that is what makes sort of Anglo-capitalism so great. No, we actually want people playing football. We want people learning how to stick their head running full speed, like inside of a scrum, and risking personal injury. That is the real skill. And that is like the special sauce that makes America and Americanism so great. And so we just this is such a mistake. Well, I'm going to draw the line at like traumatic brain injury, but I take your point at least in metaphor. There has to be a real risk, though. I mean, I'm serious about this. Like, I get it. Okay, I don't want my kids to get brain injuries either. But by the way, playing high school football, you're not going to get brain injuries. You have to actually risk something. If it's just a false kind of risk, if it's like I didn't play soccer, okay, I'm sure that some soccer players are good people. Some I assume are good people. Okay. But no, you have to go play football. You have to stick your head somewhere where, you could get a serious injury.
Did you play high school
or it doesn't
football?
count. Of course I did. I played high school football. I was a very good high school football player, actually. This was
What
all
did you play?
revealed.
What was
this
your-
was
what
all
was your
revealed in
position?
my Docs article. I was a cornerback, and I was like an H-back wide receiver. I returned punts, and
Cool.
I would get like jet
fast.
sweeps.
Yeah.
I was very fast. Okay, I was
Good.
a white chocolate. They call me white chocolate. What can I
Dude,
say?
and now you're middle aged and you have a podcast. Your life
that's
has
right. I'm living the
collapsed.
the
You
dream,
peaked
man.
so early.
Oh man.
No,
Don't
no,
even
I
get me
agree, and
started.
I agree, and here's where I agree. I was like a music kid in high school, and so I was friends with all the athletes. Dated some of the cheerleaders. But I was a music kid, creative, politics, etc. But what Vivek says, he says we need no sleepovers. We need to not go to the mall as teenagers, and we don't need to watch Saturday morning cartoons, and we don't need to celebrate the homecoming queen. I was like, dude, what are you talking about? That's America. Like, love it or hate it, like that is our national identity. Those are unique American forms. Those are like global exports even. And what he's talking about is something that I saw when I lived in China. It's an Asiatic or Eastern model. It's the Mandarin model, meaning like the kind of, it's like a eunuch model, frankly. It's a way of careful study, cold discipline, pushing out desire, and maximizing your ability to take the test. Because in China and in other places in the East, the test is determinative of your entire life. You're not really valued as an individual who makes autonomous decisions. And in fact, when I was in China, I learned something amazing. You take the national exam for a kind of high school age, and then you're not only assigned which university to go to by the Chinese Communist Party, you're assigned a major. So you're optimizing your whole life towards this narrow test taking. This is like an IQ thing too. I think why you have Asians with slightly higher mean IQs, we're not going to get in trouble with this. This is my own opinion, totally speculative, but maybe interesting, is because the culture itself is a test taking culture. I'm a kind of persuaded by Nassim Taleb's argument about IQ. You can go read it elsewhere. But I think that they're optimized towards test taking, towards this careful and constrained rationality. And so very good engineers, very good administrators, very competent kind of memorizers of a lot of information, very good at the spelling bee, right? The spelling bee winner is always now South Asian in the United States.
Pretty much.
But lacks something else that the Anglo-American civilization has. And that's not to say that it's universal, right? There are good American test takers. There are good Asian entrepreneurs. I'm talking about general cultural trends.